Welcome to MasterMind Minutes, the podcast that focuses on the franchise industry. We'll cover topics that are important to franchisees as well as franchisors and share interesting insights that will help you build your business. We have one guest, we ask one question, and we do this in minutes, not hours. Good morning again, and welcome to another edition of MasterMind Minutes. My name is Gary Occhigrosso. I am the founder and managing partner for Franchise Growth Solutions, the premier franchise development and franchise sales organization in North America, also the publisher of FranchiseMoneymaker.com. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time here on MasterMind Minutes, it's a very simple concept. We have one guest, we ask one question, and we get one expert answer. As you know, we do this in minutes, not hours. And today my guest is Josh Keegan, and he is the managing director of Ultimate FD. He is also a finance expert and chartered accountant helping underpaid and overworked entrepreneurs. I think that's all of us, helping us to restructure our businesses for better time and maybe perhaps more money. We'll talk about that. Having started, scaled, and sold multiple successful businesses, Josh walks the talk and effectively combines the disciplined world of finance with the fast-paced world of entrepreneurship. This unique skill and insight allows him to create world-class industry-leading services to efficiently support his clients with all of the financially related business challenges that we as entrepreneurs face. He knows business and finance, and it's the perfect bridge between these two worlds. So, Josh, thank you very much for being with us today. I truly appreciate it. Perhaps before we get into the question, tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and about Ultimate FD, and then we'll get into the question.
Yeah, so I think you did a really good job of summing stuff up there. That's a really great intro. So I really appreciate you. You've obviously done your research, and it's very nice to be welcomed onto the podcast in such a fashion. So as you said, my name is Joshua Keegan. I've been an entrepreneur now for 10 years. But before I started as an entrepreneur, I chartered as an accountant. And I did the typical route of starting a company, trying to scale that company. And although the company on the face of it looks like it was performing very, very well, we're actually really struggling financially. So social media looked good. My profile on all the various platforms looked good. And to the outside world, we were killing it. But behind the scenes, we were literally losing money. And there was this big six-figure black hole that we found underneath the surface. It took me a long time to find out why we were losing money. It took me a long time to get clarity on my numbers. And I'm a chartered accountant, and I struggled doing it. And I thought I was the only one. Then over time, I realized there's plenty of entrepreneurs that really have no clarity on their numbers. They don't know their numbers. And they actually are scaling a business which may not actually ever make them any money. And more I see behind the scenes. And actually, I believe that this world and finance should be the first port of call. You know, most entrepreneurs focus on the top line, the sales, the marketing, the operations, the team members, and finance is the last thing that they think about. The rest of their business grows up and they leave finance behind. But at some point, most entrepreneurs realize that this really is everything. And when you're scaling or making any decision, when you're doing anything in your business, when you're strategizing, it should start with the numbers. And after selling that first company on a really great multiple and achieving, a life-changing exit and achieving financial security for my family, I then started Ultimate FD. And what we do in Ultimate FD is we empower entrepreneurs with the tools to actually get their finances in order, build world-class finance functions, get all their forecasting, modeling, cash analysis, get everything in place. But our niche, I guess, which is different, is we're not accountants, we're entrepreneurs. So an accounting-based service built for entrepreneurs, because what we find is most entrepreneurs don't understand finance. They go to speak to an accountant, they get given a load of stuff to look at, they don't understand it, they don't get it, and they never actually use it. So what we do is we create commercial tools for entrepreneurs that want to know their numbers, they can actually understand it, which is in their language. Because as you said, there's a big disconnect between the way accountants speak and what entrepreneurs speak. So that's me.
So that makes very good sense because, as a franchise developer on the franchisor side, we deal with virtually every one of them is entrepreneurially minded, and there's certain characteristics that we all have as entrepreneurs.
We're a nightmare. We are a nightmare. Like entrepreneurs are not. We're a nightmare. Yeah.
You can ask my business partner if you ask my business partner what keeps him up at night, he would tell you me. Uh, because I come in the door every day with a new idea, and I haven't thought about how much is it going to cost and how much are we going to make. Not that that isn't part of the goal, but I just don't drill into those details. So how can I guess this is a good starting question here. What are some of the principles, if you will? Maybe there's a different word for it, but what are some of the principles or the core elements that an entrepreneur needs to focus on, or have a company like yours help them focus on, in terms of the financial system that will help ensure their success?
Yeah, we're a big believer in that most entrepreneurs are probably in the same headspace as you. And in reality, they've got ideas, they're focused on the top line. That's where their magic is. And in reality, they don't actually enjoy finance. Like, it's very rare you find an entrepreneur that goes, "Oh, I love my monthly finance review. I love speaking to my bookkeeper." Like, you're laughing. It's like, no one enjoys that. So, but in reality, you're gonna learn this one of two ways. You either almost lose everything like I did and realize this is important, or you're just gonna have to listen to someone like me, and you're actually gonna proactively put it in place. And most entrepreneurs have to be in the first camp. They have to almost lose everything to realize, wow, this stuff actually matters. And if I don't keep an eye on this stuff, it's a very painful. There's much more pain associated with not keeping an eye on it than there is with keeping an eye on it. But there's basically 6 elements or 6 things that every entrepreneur needs in place to have what we call a world-class finance function, to have everything they need at their fingertips. But before I go into the detail there, I just want to make clear like what we believe the entrepreneur's role should be. Because we don't believe that entrepreneurs should be going to and sitting and looking at books for 2 hours a month, 3 hours a month, and spotting mistakes in accounts and getting presented, hefty tax computations and looking at VAT returns. Like, that is not what an entrepreneur should be doing at all. But because entrepreneurs don't know what the solution is or the system is, they kind of settle for that. So they end up in these boring finance reviews. It's always the last thing they want to do. They get sent reports from their bookkeeper or their accountant. They look at them, they don't understand them, and they just have this begrudging obligation to do this stuff, and it's not enjoyable. So there's basically 3 things that we believe an entrepreneur should do from a finance perspective, and basically the position which they should be in. The first is they should direct and decide. So rather than being in a place where they're in the weeds, they're spotting issues and mistakes within their finance function, they sit at the top and they direct and decide. So what I mean by that is they're presented information. They take the information, they go, "That's interesting. Why are we still paying so much for that? Can we negotiate our office lease? What happens if we put our price up by 2%? And they should be able to have a 20-minute or 60-minute conversation. Then that creates, it's like the domino effect. All of these changes get made in their business. And that's what we believe entrepreneurs should be: direct and decide. And when you get to that position, that becomes a very lucrative 20 minutes, a very lucrative hour. And that's when entrepreneurs actually start to enjoy financing, because they see the tangible impact on their bottom line. The second is we think that entrepreneurs should be in a place where they are having minimal time input and they're adding max value, which kind of follows on from direct and decide. So minimal time input. With the company I sold, I was doing 20 minutes a month on finances, but that 20 minutes resulted in tens of thousands to the bottom line over a year, because all the decisions I was making, the insight I'd have, the strategic decisions I would make. So there's that element too, is like minimal time, max value. And then the third element is we think all entrepreneurs should be, they should have highly lucrative and highly leveraged businesses. So what we mean by that is the business is highly lucrative, it's high margins, and they should be highly leveraged. So they should have minimal time input into that business. And once again, people seem to think that the way they take their time out of their business is by recruiting people or finding someone in the Philippines, or outsourcing something to India or whatever it may be, and that's how they're going to get this money in this time. Whereas in reality, if you want true leverage, what you need to do is have financial clarity. You need to know what the targets are, the budgets are. You need to know what the expectations are in every single department in your business. And once you know that, you can then feed those targets, feed that clarity down to your team, because that's really how you leverage, because you make other people responsible for your numbers. And that's what the finance function allows you to do. So rather than having somebody looking after your sales, and you say, "I'll just make sales," it's like, right, your target is this. This is the minimum gross margin you've got to achieve on sales. Tell me how you're going to do it. And that's how you start to leverage things away, and how you become totally leveraged from the business. So those are the 3 things we believe, or the level every entrepreneur should get to above their finance function.
Okay, that makes perfectly good sense. And I guess, can you tie that to It's one thing when we talk about big companies that have layers of people and you've got accountants and a CFO and the entrepreneur, maybe the CEO, and you can then filter that responsibility down to layers of people, and that's wonderful. I love that. But on a smaller scale, on a Main Street scale, because most entrepreneurs are Main Street people. They're operating small businesses. It could be a restaurant, could be a coffee shop, could be a cleaning service. Not everyone is Elon Musk. Um, how do you connect the principles of what you just taught us to someone who's running a smaller business, so that they can, I don't, yeah, maybe outperform is a strong word, but at least compete with companies that are on a larger scale and have more resources and accesses? How can they be as smart?
Yeah, so I think one of the sentiments I'd offer is bigger businesses don't have bigger margins. Like when a business gets bigger and the turnover gets larger and larger, it's not like, if you're at a 30% margin, as you scale to 10 million quid, that margin is probably not going to stay at 30%. It's probably going to go down to 12, 20%, 15%. So although they might be making more profit, it doesn't necessarily mean they're more efficient. And I
Mhm.
think we're in a world right now where for entrepreneurs, it's never been easier to scale a highly lucrative and a highly leveraged business. And what I mean by that is a business which generates really high margins. And, we see behind the scenes of lots of companies, but I'm in like a service-based consultancy business. And for us, a high margin would probably be anywhere from 35 to about 45%. That'd be a high net margin. It's obviously different depending on the different company you are, but that'd be a good place for us. And it's easier than ever to achieve that. And what I'd say from a finance perspective, like when we're talking about building this finance function and getting the tools you need in place, you can massively outperform big businesses because you can do something that they can't. And this applies to every discipline, but specifically within finance, the whole principle is you get the right person, you put them in the right role, and you pay the right price. And the right person can be any person in the entire world. Like we're not bound by an office. We're not bound by international boundaries anymore. And you can literally go and find the right person for the right role anywhere in the world. So when we set these finance functions up, or my finance team, and the finance functions we've set up in the past, this works for an entrepreneur that's got, the smallest we've probably ever done is like a £30,000 revenue, all the way up to about £10 million revenue. And the model is exactly the same. And we talk about the four professionals. So every business needs four professionals within their finance function specifically to get to a place where they are getting the information they need, they're overseeing, they're direct and decide, they're adding a high margin to their business every single month, and they're very, very leveraged from the finance function. And there's basically four levels, which is your finance assistant, which is the lowest level. They're normally in the business. And they're responsible for what we call operational finance. And that's things like making payments in the bank, that's credit control, whatever that may be. You then build from there. You have a bookkeeper that oversees your finance assistant and is responsible for what we call recs and checks. So they're basically reconciling the accounts. People think that bookkeeping is simple. And one of the biggest risks we face is entrepreneurs try and do this themselves. And the principle we have there is don't do this yourself. It's both above and beneath you. Because if you don't understand how balance sheets work, it's above you, but it's also beneath you. As an entrepreneur, we would like to think you're trying to earn hundreds, if not thousands of pounds an hour, not the 15 quid an hour, £15 an hour, $18 an hour, whatever it may be over there, that you pay to have a bookkeeper do this work for you. So you have a bookkeeper for recs and checks and putting stuff in the right place and actually allocating things in the accounts. Right, Gary spent £10 at Starbucks yesterday, or $10, sorry, at Starbucks yesterday. So let's put that to accommodation and food, or whatever that may be. But then a lot of entrepreneurs stop there. So they get a bookkeeper and then they're frustrated because that bookkeeper is asking them questions about how they do their accounts. They're, well, I don't know. You're meant to know this. You're a bookkeeper. But what they don't understand is what sits above a bookkeeper is what we call a finance manager. So a finance manager is often the missing link. They're responsible for turning data to information. And a good finance manager will take all the work the bookkeeper's done, say, Gary, look, your profit was down by $10,000 this month. Here's why. Your sales were up, but your cost of goods sold were also up massively, and you had this big one-off legal fee. That's why your sales are down. There's the story for you, Gary. So they turn data to information. They do the reporting for you, which gives you the information you need to actually run the business. And then the fourth professional is your tax accountant, which your tax accountant should primarily be for tax strategy. So it's advising you how to use your pension or use whatever it is to draw money effectively, minimize the tax you're going to pay this year to corporation tax, etc. So that system works very effectively and well. And the reason why this is very accessible for small entrepreneurs, looping back to your question, because I've just now told you need 4 people in your finance function. It's like, well, we were doing this on a shoestring as it was. Well, because each of these person is paid based on the hours they work. And as you work your way up, the professionals, they work less and less hours. So although they get more expensive, they work less and less hours. So you can literally have someone in the Philippines doing the bulk of the hours for you in that finance assistant role for $6 an hour. Then a bookkeeper's £15 an hour or $18 an hour, but they're going to be doing less hours. Finance managers going to be way more expensive, but they're doing even less hours. Your tax accountant does even less hours. So you work up this pyramid, and what happens? You get the right person in the right role, and you pay the right price. And the actual cost to have this is quite minimal, yet you get all the expertise, and it scales with the business too, because it can grow with the business.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes perfectly good sense. So it's 4 functions. Doesn't necessarily mean that the entrepreneur is hiring 4 full-time people sitting in the office to do those functions. That can be outsourced. You can put that together in a unique and innovative way. If I heard you correctly, and I happen to agree, that today entrepreneurs have so many more assets at their fingertips due to the digital assets that we have. We can reach out across the world and find people or find services, platforms, automation, AI, different things that we can do. All that being said, the 4 functions, if you will, if I recall, the finance assistant, and then the bookkeeper and the finance manager and the tax accountant, those 4 functions need to be done regardless of whether it's 4 people actually sitting in an office or those functions are outsourced on an at-will basis. But that's what the entrepreneur should be doing, correct? Did I kind of understand that the right way?
Yeah, they all need doing. But I think you'd be missing a trick if you went and I think the world's changed now. Like all of this now should be external, in my opinion. In fact, the only role you might have in the office is the finance assistant, but specifically the finance assistant might be in the office because they're customer facing, they're part of your team. But actually, strategically, I would always keep the other 3 outside. The reason for that is you've got urgent versus important. And one of the traps entrepreneurs fall into is, when you're doubling the size of your business, when you just acquired a new client, when you're opening a new store, that's when you need your numbers the most. But there's a risk that all that chaos comes into all of those other people's roles, and all of a sudden you don't have your management accounts, you don't have your cash flow, and all the stuff you really needed is gone. So I would always keep the bottom, the finance assistant stays in the business. They're part of the team. Your bookkeeper, your finance manager, your tax accountant, have them separate so that they're always focused on bookkeeping. They're not getting caught up in your, as you said, you come into the office, you've got 50 ideas. They don't want to hear those ideas. They just want to tick away on the accounts and not get sidetracked by that. Because when you get busy, you want them to just be busy, but just doing the accounts and not getting sucked into all the drama and all the issues that are going on in the company.
Absolutely. You said it beautifully. So, when I read your bio, I think in the first or second sentence there, it talked about entrepreneurs being underpaid and overworked. And I think the underpaid part may be a function of either their inability or just lack of desire to understand how it all works, which I think you've really expressed beautifully here in solving that problem in one way or another. But the other sentence there was overworked. So how can you and maybe you can share some insights on how sort of efficient business management can lead to an entrepreneur having, I don't know, maybe some more personal freedom, more time. I have this expression that the 2 things a business should give you is more time and more money. If it only gives you one of those 2 things, your business is not successful. So how can this sort of thinking lead to the entrepreneur having more freedom? I know for myself, when I have more time and less worry, for example, about finances, my head is clear. I'm able to meditate more, clear my head, come up with new ideas that typically annoy other people around me, but that's beside the point. So how can one lead to the other, to a more personal freedom or business freedom in terms of time?
Yeah, I think so. I'm probably not going to give the answer that you guys are probably expecting. And I think there's thousands of podcasts out there you can listen to about, hacks, productivity hacks, cold showers, wherever it is you want, and you can go and listen to all that stuff. And to be fair, I literally did one on my own podcast last week about 5 productivity hacks, and it's like so it's common stuff. But what I'm gonna say is, like, rather than zooming in on specific things, I'm gonna zoom out and like come at this more from a finance angle, because you've got hundreds of entrepreneurs that could talk to you about this stuff, and try and use my expertise and tell you what you could put in place, which will really help you. And I'd say the biggest thing that the business owners are lacking, which I think is the key to all of this, the key to leverage, the key to having more time, the key to working less, the key to earning more money, is what we call a business model. And I think entrepreneurs get confused as to what a business model is. It sounds complicated, but the ethos we have is there's a difference between a business that makes money and a business that doesn't make money, and it's normally the business model. And what a business model is a set of rules, a set of standards, and it's also the destination as to where you're going. So there's 5 elements to a business model, and basically what it said, what the business model takes is, what is your minimum price, what is your minimum gross margin, what's the maximum you're going to spend on overheads, what's your minimum net margin, and how big are you going to get? So what size are you going to operate at? And by basically deciding those 5 things, what you're going to do is you're going to have an output, and you're going to say, right, we need to be £1 million worth of sales from 50 clients per year. We're going to have a minimum gross margin of 60%, so 600 grand. Overheads are going to be, I'm just plucking numbers out there, 300 grand, and I'm going to have a 300 grand profit at the bottom, which is a 30% net margin. And why do I say that? Like, why do I think this is the tool for earning more and working less? Well, you wouldn't build a house without a blueprint. Don't build a business without a business model. Spend time actually working out what the business is going to look like, and actually design the financial rules and the financial output of the business. When you're building that business model, one of the first things you want to do is make sure your time is not factored in, and you've got enough salaries and enough people in there that are going to do all of the jobs within your business so that you don't have to. And what too many entrepreneurs do is they just scale this company. They don't pay themselves anything. And the only reason the company is working is because they're doing all their work for free. If you're in that boat where your business only works because you're working for free, and if you start charging what you'd pay the market rate for somebody else to come do your work, which, managing director, it might be $80,000, whatever that may be. If you're not charging for that, then you're never going to be able to step out, because you don't have the margin or the cost in there to actually bring somebody in to take your place. So this is why, for me, I think the business model is always the starting point. It's going, what does the end output actually look like? And do I have all the costs that I need in place to run this business without me? And of course, then there's going to be a journey to get there. But I always start with that point, because if that works, if the rules work, and you can see it's going to stack effectively in a year's time, 2 years' time, then you're pointing in the right direction. And over time, you're going to have the margin and the budget to actually replace yourself, which is part of the battle. It's what you don't want to do. Charging low prices, the business only works because you're running it and you're doing everything for free, and you realize, right, I need to replace myself, and by replacing yourself, you're going to lose money, because that doesn't work either. So I think it starts with a business model personally, and that's where I would start for anyone who wants to go on that journey.
Well, let me say this. You are preaching to the choir with what you just said, because what you outlined, using some different words, what you just outlined is the franchise business prototype, which Michael Gerber, who years ago had written a book called The E-Myth Revisited.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
My model for our clients who are franchisors. And why am I saying that? Because franchising is a system. It's a business model. And every aspect of that business, the finance piece, could be the service piece, could be the recipe, could be the plate build. If it's a restaurant, it could be, how you mow the lawn. If it's a service business that mows lawns, every single aspect, every piece of that business is designed and proven so that the people run that system, and that system runs the business. That's direct out of the E-Myth Revisited. And that
Perfect.
Is essentially the difference between an entrepreneur, and it took me a long time to learn this, by the way. That's the difference between an entrepreneur understanding the difference between the work of the business and the business. The work of the business should be done by a system that people are operating, and the business is what the entrepreneur does, and that is sort of the vision aspect of it. So I
100%.
have to tell you, that was beautifully said, because that to me is what frees entrepreneurs up in terms of their time so that they can do whatever they want to do. If you want to go lay on a beach in Hawaii, go right ahead. If you want to start another business, go right ahead. But it gives you the time and the freedom to do those things. So, touche.
And also, just to build on that as well, I think another thing is, like, if you build in the model and actually you're happy to work in the business, just pay yourself the market rate to work in the business too. So at least you get compensated for your time. So if you're going to be the managing director of your business that you think you get for $80,000 a year, pay yourself $80,000 a year, because the business gets used to that. And at least then you're getting paid for work, and then you get the profit on top. So yeah, I think we're speaking the exact same language.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The other thing, and I think you alluded to it earlier in your earlier statement, is that if your company can't afford to pay you that money, then something's wrong. Okay, then you're not making money. You're only making money because you've got volunteers, mainly the entrepreneur, who's volunteering their time to keep the business afloat. That's not a business, that's a rescue. So I have an issue with that. So we're kind of coming short on time here, but if there's any last word or any last thought or insight that you'd like to share with the audience, please do so. And then I'll ask you if someone wants to get in touch with you, but any last thoughts on this topic?
Any last words or insight?
Yeah. And
I think, go on, sorry.
You're hunting around for the best one, I can see.
Yeah, no, I've got a few. It's just choosing which one. I think my biggest sentiment would probably be that, unfortunately, what I have to talk about is not particularly engaging or fun. And most entrepreneurs neglect what I talk about, what I spend my life talking about, which is, having, accurate financials, having forecasts, having cash flow analysis. But to me, it's like the thing that causes the least amount of stress, and it's without a doubt one of the most high value returns on your time, having all this in place, and also gives you confidence and peace of mind. And it's also the tool that allows you to create phenomenal wealth. So I guess if my key sentiment would be to anyone listening, it would just be, just start to tune into it and start thinking about it. Like, most entrepreneurs spend all their days thinking about the top line. And I would encourage you to move from thinking about the top line to start thinking about the profit, start thinking about the bottom line, and start thinking, well, how's strategically, if we're going to make an extra £1 million worth of sales this year, how is that going to translate through? And any entrepreneur can go out, they can build a business, they can add money to the top line. Like, we're all scared at the start, like, are we actually going to make any sales? And we realize that's not really our problem. Our problem is that we're too busy, and we've got to find ways to efficiently get it to the bottom line. And if you're going to take anything away from today, just start thinking about playing the profit game. Start thinking about the bottom line as opposed to the top. And that's where you'll see the real returns on all your time, all your energy and investment. And that's where you'll start to really accumulate some phenomenal wealth. And more revenue doesn't mean more profit. Bigger is not always better. And actually, sometimes you're standing on a mountain of value, and you just got to flip your attention. You can make hundreds, if not millions of extra dollars a year just by doing what you're already doing, but looking at how you're going to more efficiently structure that business to get it to the bottom.
Well, that's terrific. And you said there was more than one thing that you wanted to share. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that as a lead in for my audience. If they want to get in touch with you and learn more about what you do and how you can help them, what would be the best way? Is there a website, email? What's your preferred point of contact?
Yeah, so if people want to read my book, you can download my book for free. If you go to ultimatebig-business-big-profit. I'm sure we can put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, we will. The link will be
perfect.
The link will be embedded in the program. So you want to
absolutely. So go and get a copy of my book, and I've also got a podcast, Ultimate FD podcast. So feel free to tune in, but obviously prioritize Mastermind Minutes first before you come and listen to me.
Okay, we will definitely do that. It's a fascinating topic because it's one that plagues, I don't want to say all, but I will say most entrepreneurs who are always focused on their dream and the widget and how they're going to change the world, without due focus on what does it cost and what will be the financial aspect of the whole thing. So Josh, it's fascinating. We have to have you back because I think there's there's more to it than I think we've just scratched the surface here. And I would love to have you back, and we can get into more details on this. But for now, I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thanks for having me.